Handed out is kind of an agenda, or a summary of where we think we're at, what we're gonna be talking about tonight and voting on. We'll go through those. If there are things that are missed, we'll certainly address those as we go. And I thought that the way that we probably wanna go is, in order, and I guess, do we have more, do we have minutes?
You did, it was circulated.
Okay, I guess we need to do it. Call it, or
Sure.
whatever it is, and then we'll do the motion. Sorry. Man with a mission.
Are you here?
I'm here.
Ms. Reagan? Here. Ms. Hand? Here. Mr. Milstein?
Here.
Mr. LaParo?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Engel?
Physically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have?
But you gave it away, but you didn't read the minutes that weren't attached.
Yeah, I did read it.
Okay.
And I know that you struggled diligently, well, maybe.
I
we'll
did.
get them all,
Yeah,
because
I put those earbuds in my ear.
There were audio issues last time. So is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented by the clerk? Is there a second?
This is what we just received?
Yes.
No,
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 minutes.
minutes in the email yesterday or.
Yesterday afternoon.
I did not read it, so I'm sorry.
I have to abstain since I was not here, but I did read them.
All right, well, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Opposed? All right.
Abstain.
The motions are accepted as presented. Let's start with the,
Could I,
Yes,
process,
I'm sorry.
just process, are you looking for, just motions, limited discussions, no discussions, process?
okay, let's talk process. One of the things that I guess we need to address is there's been an issue raised as to will we get a chance to look at them once they go to the law department and then come back, and that's what we're gonna be requesting. So I hope everybody's happy with that, and then if there are problems when they come back, we will address those that may require it. In case what is proposed isn't what we thought, and I'm not sure if that may require scheduling another meeting or not. I
We
don't think it
technically have
would.
one on the calendar for May 15th.
Can I make
But
a
I'm not-
motion regarding that?
Well, why don't you say what it is?
I
What?
think that we should have final approval on
Right.
them item by item.
That's what I just
Once
said.
they come back. So,
That's why I said we're requesting.
Somewhat.
If I don't think it needs to be a formal motion unless you want to do it.
And I don't know that you really did answer the question,
Who?
Ms. Reagan's, because I think she was kind of asking the process.
Well, right, I
Well-
started with that process, but then there's
Okay.
the process for tonight. I think this is the way I vision it, is that we're gonna go in order, and we're gonna have a chance at limited discussion, and on each topic before we make a formal motion. To me, it doesn't matter who actually makes the motion, but I think we all know what they are, and we'll make the motion, and then we'll go as far as we can. If we can't get through everything tonight, we have another meeting for voting in
May
Month.
15th.
May 13th, another one.
Let's try to wrap up the voting today, I would like.
I agree.
Another thing, I think unless it's new, really new information that we haven't already heard, we should really limit it to 2 minutes or 3 minutes on a topic, because most of this we've had ample discussion, at least I think we have. And since all 7 of us are here, a motion, a second, a majority, and we'll move on. No second, no majority, fails,
Got it.
right? And we're all on the same page?
Okay, the first one is, all right, let's do it. Everybody in agreement did that? We're gonna go in order, article. Probably the first one, which is, at least what I think it may be the most elusive at this point, but it's Article 1, Section 3.01, discussions of a primary or runoff election. Do we have a motion, or do we have any discussion before we make that motion?
I have several motions to make for 3.01.
All right,
First motion I'll make is a motion to prepare a charter amendment to ensure that a simple majority of voters, meaning greater than 50%, is required to elect a mayor in our municipality. I have 3 bullet points.
I think you should put them into that motion.
Okay. I'd like to include them in the motion then. Item A, requiring mayoral candidates to petition the Board of Election to be a candidate and accordance with BOE requirements for the number of signatures and the filing deadline based on holding a primary election for the office to be held in May of the election year.
Okay.
Item B, conducting a nonpartisan primary in May of the election year if the number of candidates for mayor exceeds 2.
Okay.
And item C, if the number of candidates is 2 or less, no primary need be held, and the 2 or less candidates proceed to ballot for the general election.
Okay. Is there a second to Dave? I think you're done with your motion, right?
Yes.
Is there a second to Dave's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Tina will second it. Thank you. Is there any brief discussion before we proceed?
Yes, I just would like to say that the President of the United States doesn't get voted in by more than 50%. So here we are, a small little town of 11,000 people, and I don't know that we really need to have. I appreciate Dave's effort in putting all this together, but I don't know that for our little town of Macedonia that we really need to have 50% or more of the voters. It's unfortunately you don't get a large group of voters out in any given election, especially a May primary.
Okay. Anybody else? Dave?
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I also feel it's appropriate that we let the voters decide if council agrees.
Okay.
Dave?
Chuck, yes.
Are we voting or just expressing what we think of this?
We are expressing.
All right.
In kind and positive ways, though.
All I'm saying is I disagree with it.
Oh, well, you can wait and do that when you vote. But, all right. Anybody else?
The only thing I'll mention is I think it's a silly idea. I think it's counterproductive, and what it'll do, it will result in bad government. And the reason why is that now the person who has the most money has the best shot at winning the election because they are going to have to spend twice, not on one election, but 2 elections. They are going to have to spend twice as much money to be elected to the office, and secondly, they're going to have to put in twice as much time, and what it will do is, it will discourage many of our citizens who don't have the money, who don't have the time, who yet want to participate in the political process. It is actually, this scheme is geared toward favoring the incumbent candidate, and it's no more than a response to a recent action that took place in our city involving a recent election, and it is simply no more than that. It's not remedial, it's basically political.
Okay.
And for that reason, it's a bad idea. But I really resent that what we're doing is we are increasing the cost of people who want to be elected to office, and we're also increasing the amount of time. A little city like Macedonia of 11,000 people, and Mr. Miglerini put it correctly, doesn't take a majority of votes to elect a United States president. But somehow we feel that we need to do this. It's just wrong.
Okay, we don't. We're giving the citizens the opportunity to decide that for us.
All right. Trying to keep in mind the time. Anybody else have any discussions, or can we proceed to vote?
I will say, I don't think it's a perfect solution. I understand the issues, but I have to say, people care about this primary. I mean, I've heard comments, people do want an opportunity for a primary where I might not totally support it. I do feel, I give the residents, give the voters the option to say yes or no.
All right. Anybody else? Great. All in favor?
I think we need a
We're
roll
gonna
call.
do roll call.
Okay.
And now you are
I think
gonna
we're
be,
required to.
and yes, and now you are gonna be in alphabetical order according to Robert's rules, so, all right, we're ready. Mr. Pango,
Yes. So we're voting yes on the motion. All right.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
No.
Mr. Martin,
No.
Mr. Miglerini?
No.
Mr. Milstein?
Yes.
And Ms. Sprague?
Yes.
So the motion passes 4-3, is that correct?
That is correct.
Why the incumbents took control of this board to preserve their time in office in re-elections. That's all this is gonna do. It's shameful. Shameful act.
All right. Article 3, Section 303 is the next section that we had discussed. I'm taking a motion, and it deals with, I believe, the president presiding at council meetings.
Yes, and this part is just slightly confusing, only in that, in reference to 303I. Just bear with me for a moment.
403 and 409.
Well, there's other applicable places, so I think you don't really need to be formal on this because it'll come out in these sessions, but, it's under I. I labeled it, but you think I'll find it? No, of course, that would be too easy. Oh, it is I, okay. It's under the mayor's legislative power, and it says, "The mayor shall preside at all council meetings, be given a voice in the deliberations of council, but he shall have no vote." So I think it's imperative that if your plan is that he shall have a voice in deliberation but have no vote, that would remain in that section, and then in the relevant section on the council would be the council, however you wanted to word that. So that part would be deleted.
I know, it's my motion, I
Oh.
agree with you 100%.
Oh, you understand where I'm going with
Yeah,
this, because then you have to
because
go
my
back.
motion was, are you ready for my motion?
If
Because
you're
I'm
ready
the
to
one who
give
brought
it to
this
us,
up.
you give
I
us the
would like to
motion.
make a motion to put to the voters of the city of Macedonia an amendment to amend section, article, whatever, line 226
Yeah.
in the draft we have, 303.
Right.
To state the mayor shall be given a voice in deliberations of council, but he shall have no vote. And as a partner to that, amend section 403, and to say that add a sentence at the end of the current paragraph to say the council president shall preside at all regular, special, and/or public hearings of council.
So do you mind just showing me what line that was? Just tell me the line that was.
311, 226, and 311.
Okay, is that your motion, then, Peggy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Nobody wants to talk about this? We're so vehement on the last one? Okay. Did you want to say something? I wasn't trying to be.
No, I
stealing.
stated my case. You know how I
Okay.
feel, no surprises.
All right. All in favor of the,
I'm gonna do a roll call, sir, if you don't mind.
oh, you're right, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. LaParo?
No.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. Miglerini?
No.
Mr. Milstein?
Yes.
And Ms. Sprague?
Yes.
It's my understanding, if I counted right, that motion will pass 4-3.
Yes.
Let's move on to Article 3, Section 3.3, which we've got listed as the subject as the veto percentage. There has been some discussion, the veto is currently 2/3, which, when we had 6 people on council, was an even number of 4, but now it's closer, to make so the motion, I think, is to make it, so I'm not sure what the motion is.
Well, it is a percentage, so you
Right.
have to decide whether the whole number and what you want that whole number to be.
Yeah.
If I'm,
Right, currently,
Remember
if we
it
don't
correctly.
change it, it would be
it's still 4.
4,
Right.
which is closer to, what's the number? I don't know, 75% or something?
We went 66.
Could I go out of order and skip down to fractions and make a motion at this time?
Sure.
That whenever we're discussing things tonight, I'd like to make a motion that any fractions be replaced with whole numbers.
I have a motion that will include the statement.
Well, I'm just, before we talk about any of these percentages, I'm just thinking if we all agree to do that, then we can start talking in whole numbers. If that's not a majority of the commission here thinking that way, then we're wasting our time talking about whole numbers, and we're gonna have to talk about fractions.
There's only really 3 areas where fractions still exist. Only 3. So veto is one of them. It's actually, veto is one of them, and then the other, if mistakenly, and I think this was mistaken, when we looked at the building commissioner, because everybody else's section was fixed, so I think that was an oversight. And the other one is, again, relative to the executive power of the department head, subject to the confirmation of council. That's under regular duties, and I think that was an oversight too, but having said that. So now you can decide how you want to do that.
You guys want to, well, why don't we just take this one at a time?
Okay,
There's
that's
only
fine.
3.
I'll remove,
And so I think the motion.
withdraw my motion.
Right, and so I think the motion, I'll make the motion. The motion would be to replace the 2/3 with 3 council members, which I think is closer to what it was before. That would be my motion.
Clarification, please.
Sure.
So what you're suggesting is that a simple majority is the approval?
I understand that, yes, and the reason I'm saying that is that before the change in council, simple majority was also would override a veto, because that's 2/3. And
So you're not saying, though, that overriding the veto should be 4 at least? correct?
I'm not saying that, no. I'm trying to keep.
Is that the offer of this to change that so that it needs 4 to override a veto?
The offer is to
Have 3.
3. Right now, the law department has expressed an opinion that because it says 2/3, that it requires a full 2/3, which is 66.6%. And I'm wanting to go back to what it was before, or the way I see it before.
So just so we're clear, so that anytime in the future, no matter who the mayor may be,
Right.
it's 3 votes that would be able to override a veto.
That's my motion,
Okay.
because it's, again, I think it takes it back to what it was before the change, which was because of the limited number of council members, before it was a simple majority, would override a veto too.
So Dave, if we make no change, what is the law, what is the standing of the city for this?
Okay, if we make no change, it
It's
requires 4 to
4
override
override
the
veto, okay,
Sure.
got it.
So the language would read,
Would not that simply cause a veto of the mayor, assuming there were 3 votes initially for an ordinance or resolution or motion? Would that not make it moot?
I don't know if it makes it moot, all I can do.
Or
talk-
of no effect?
The process
The
would
veto
still-
would be symbolic only if there's
No,
3 votes
It's a
already.
process to which you would have to go to because somebody could change their mind.
And in the
Good
past,
point.
that has occurred on several occasions, not numerous, but on several occasions between the passage of the legislation and the veto and the motion to override the veto, a member has changed their mind, whether the mayor, whichever mayor I've served under, I don't know which, reached out or that person just had second thoughts, I can't tell.
Dave, right now, we are saying it takes 3 out of 5 to override a veto, right?
My motion is to make it 3 out of 5.
Okay,
Currently, the law department says it takes 4 out of 5.
I ain't worried about the law department.
All right, I
I'm
understand.
saying is, I agree with you. Now, this holds if we have 5. I presume we're not going to 6, if that would be say a couple of years from now, for some reason we went to 6 councilmen, and we're back in the same stigma we are right now.
Yes.
How do we prevent that?
Hopefully, it won't miss
I-
changing it.
I don't think you can prevent changing it, Chuck, because, and I think that if it ever happens again, the council would, and the charter review would know that you gotta adjust this.
I just want to say that it doesn't seem fair in the balance of fairness, and the fact that, if you have a simple majority of 3 that voted in initially, then the mayor vetoes, then you should be able to take 4 to override your veto. Otherwise, the process, and the democratic process, is shot. You're not doing you're doing an injustice to the system.
You mean-
Regardless who the mayor is.
Right, I understand. You mean by my motion?
By 3, yes.
That's fine.
I mean, I think you need to have a majority of council, and the majority would, or the supermajority would be 4.
Right.
As opposed to 3. So
Well-
that's just my position.
I understand. All I'm saying is that before it was a simple majority, and it was that way, I think, when you were mayor.
Sure.
Can I ask that you clarify that? We had 6 council members and the mayor is a tiebreaker. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Right.
Under those circumstances, to pass legislation, did we required a majority of council, which would have been 4 out of 6, right? If it was a tie,
The
then
mayor
it had to
could
be
vote.
4 out of 7.
Well, I think it was 5 on the veto, I think, at that time.
No,
No.
it's
No.
two-thirds.
Was it-
No,
It's the
I
same
believe it
language.
was 4.
It was two-thirds, it's the same language, and it was 4 of the 6.
I'm simply trying to clarify that from a mathematical standpoint, what Dave is proposing is exactly mathematically what was here with the council members in the past. The
But
way it was,
as you pointed out,
without the tiebreaker.
there used to be, before the charter was changed, the mayor did have the right to veto it, to break a tie. Under the current charter, the mayor has no right to break a tie.
Correct.
Does that explain what we're doing?
Yes, I
Or
understand.
What we're talking about?
Yeah.
Even if there were a quorum of 4 and the vote was 2-2, you couldn't do it. It would just stand for that.
I mean, current.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Under the current scenario, let's say a quorum showed up, they had the meeting, business as usual, something was at its 3rd reading, and they had an opportunity to vote. If it was a 2-2 vote, you could not do anything, there would be no action.
Yes.
Excuse me, in the 1999 charter, it said the same thing, 2/3.
Right.
Right.
And 2/3 back then was 4,
Or-
which was also a majority.
Yeah.
So, all right, does everybody understand the motion?
I do, but one thing of clarification, because,
Sure.
you guys are on council, and the debate's still going on, what is 2/3?
Yes.
If you get a motion, are we gonna come back and then change that to a whole number, or are you just gonna leave it 2/3?
My motion is
It's a
to
whole
change
number.
it to a whole
To-
number of
oh.
3.
Okay,
So,
okay,
the
but
paragraph,
if
Yeah.
it doesn't pass, are we still gonna look at changing whole numbers, or just, you see what I'm saying?
I'm thinking that, if it doesn't, this motion doesn't pass, then I think we would address whole numbers in other cases except for,
Because what you're saying is,
Oh, I see
your
what you-
interpretation, 2/3 is 3, but the law department may ruling 2/3 is 4 because of the fraction.
case law.
Right.
I'm understanding your logic. because if
Right,
this-
so, all right, so let's do it this way. I think what we would do is we would do a motion. If I get a second, we'll vote on my motion. If it's defeated, then someone would be free to make a motion to change it to 4. If someone would second that, then we would vote on that. If that motion passes, we would go to 4. If it doesn't pass, then we just stay where we're at, I guess. Does that make sense to everybody?
I'm a little baffled, but it doesn't matter to me, I'm just writing it.
No, I mean-
I'm just writing it, doesn't matter to me.
I
The
mean-
leg jump.
I tell you what, we're creating a web of complexity that's gonna be very, very difficult for the voters to understand. And let me tell you another thing, going from 6 to 5 members was a disaster, and it's been documented in our local newspapers. And doing this, allowing 3 members to run the city now, what we're doing is we're making a bad idea, actually a very poor operating model, now it will be worse. And that's all we're doing. Right now, we're not serving the interests of our residents. We're serving the interests of a special interest, a faction within our city. And what we're doing is, we are dramatically changing the balance of power that presently exists between the legislature and our mayor. He, in effect, will now be handcuffed, and he will, in effect, will be controlled by a troika. That is a group of 3 people, and that group of 3 persons will be making the decisions for the city now. So I hope the voters of Macedonia realize that they're not going to elect the mayor anymore to run a city, but actually it will be council now that will have the say. And that's not the way our balance of power or our government, the executive and the legislature, is supposed to work. But so be it.
Dave, I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Would you call the roll? Train me well.
Well, and delineate it so we know which one we're voting on.
All right, so
Because
the-
I have,
So the motion right now is by Mr. Engel, second by Ms. Hannah, that the sentence would read, be approved by the affirmative vote of at least 3 members elected to council. No. Vote of 3 members
Right.
elected to council, not at least. 3 members elected to council. So under that veto qualification, be approved by the affirmative vote of 3 members elected to council.
Maybe it should be up to 3, or at least 3, could be 4.
Well, that,
Well, I would agree with 4.
I know, but we're voting on 3.
When you just said
well, he said it could be more than
Because of her language, she was saying.
Yeah, I,
I'd say that language probably needs to stay. But that's for the law department.
Dave,
Oh,
can't you put in there like 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6? So for the future charters, it'll already be in there?
who's gonna understand this stuff
yeah,
if we're
we're
voting?
not, we can't just think what they're gonna change the charter. I think
Well,
it
I
just
understood the
needs to
3
be
out of 5, not the 33 and 6/8 or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Can I ask a question of
Sure.
clarification? You're talking about line 244,
correct.
and instead of saying a vote of at least 2/3 of the members, we're simply saying a vote of 3 members.
I think it should, well, yes. or
That's
at
what you're
least 3.
proposing.
Yes, that's my proposal.
A vote of 3 members.
Take at least out.
I think it should be.
Well, you need to discuss that with Mr. Milstein before.
I think it needs to be of at least 3.
Okay.
But
Yeah. That's fine.
Dave,
yeah.
I agree with you, but we gotta make sure when we say 3, we're talking about 5 council people.
Right, that's because, we don't have to say that, Chuck, because we have 5 council.
Right. Okay,
Okay.
but that's what I'm saying, in case that ever number changes, we're gonna have to change that 3 then.
Right, since you're the dean of charter review, and you'll probably be on charter review again, you can remember that, okay?
I will.
And this is all Chuck's fault, because he was part of charter review when they changed all this.
I agree. I learned.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo.
Yes.
I went blank. Mr. Martin,
No.
Mr. Miglerini,
No.
Mr. Milstein,
No.
Ms. Briggs.
I'm gonna vote no, and I just wanna say I'm voting on no because I wanna separate the powers. Council needs to have more legislative power, and the mayor has to have more administrative power.
So if I read your notes right, the motion failed, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So the question, I think, is do we want to change it to 4 or just leave it at 2?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and change it to 4, at least 4.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to change it to 4, or at least 4, from the 2/3 language. Is there any discussion on Peggy's motion?
I just wanna think that wisdom has prevailed.
Okay,
It's refreshing.
Mr. Engel?
I am refreshed, but I will vote no.
Please, I have a headache.
Yeah, it's only gonna get worse.
Now we're voting for four.
Tell me, explain that to me again.
So right now, the veto language says, if I can, the
Sure.
2/3, we're taking the 2/3 out. For the 3 votes, the 3, it didn't pass. So now it would read, approved by the affirmative vote of at least 4 of the members elected to
To
council.
override a veto.
To override a veto.
Which is the same as it is currently, but we're substituting the 2/3 fraction for a whole number of 4.
I would argue it's not the same currently. It's the same currently as interpreted using the legal opinion from the law department.
Yeah,
So
that's
if we
fine.
got a new
There are
legal
arguments.
opinion, and
It's over the
I'm
whole,
just
it's
saying,
over the
I
whole
know.
number 3, so you can cut off some of these arms.
I'm
A different opinion might have a different number.
I know, and I think voters understand whole numbers better than fractions.
Why don't we go ahead and vote on this? It's
Well,
pretty
Ms.
easy to
Hannah's still
understand.
thinking, would you like me to move to the next one? Because I can't.
I mean, you know, Christ, it's 7 o'clock and we've only
Oh.
got through about 3
Hey,
of them.
hey, hey,
Yeah, I'd like to take the vote.
we are if you shut up.
Point of order.
No, I'm
Point
not.
of order.
You're
Point of
Mr.
you're messing around
LaCaro,
too
Mr.
much.
LaCaro, Mrs. Hannah wants to think for a minute. Now, this is for 4. The
Four-
word
four- Four to override a veto on
Correct.
5 council people?
Yes.
Right.
No.
No, yeah. I vote no.
Okay, Ms. Hannah, you're back at no.
Yeah.
And Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Miglerini,
Yes.
Mr. Milstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to change the wording from 2/3 to 4 passed. So, let's go on to Article 4, Section 13, which deals with the removal of a council member.
If I might,
Sure.
I had, before we move away from 3, I had one more motion to consider for Article 3.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And actually, I'm not sure, but Article 3 was the best place I could figure to throw this one down or out. I'll simply make the motion. We may have to sort out the many different areas that the charter will be impacted if we proceed with preparing something that's got to go to council for it. I make a motion that we prepare a charter amendment to change the form of the Macedonia city government to a city manager form of government.
Why would you bring this up at this late hour?
It's been
It's not late hour, Ken, you haven't been to quite a few meetings, so.
Oh, bullshit.
You missed-
Get out of here. I've been to quite a few meetings.
We discussed
Get out
point
of
of
here.
order too, foul language,
Let's all try to be civil.
arguable.
So getting, yeah,
Is there a second?
is there, is there a
Yeah, I know.
second? Is there a second?
Want more education too.
Fails.
Yeah, I like your idea, but I think that we really don't have it worked out, the details.
I don't disagree with that. I'd like to post a second motion, an
Okay.
alternative motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we make a recommendation to council that prior to the next Charter Review Commission, council investigates and perhaps develops a preliminary report or information on how to proceed with perhaps considering a city manager form of government. I'm not sure if, you know.
I'll second-
Can you
I'll
give me
second that
better
motion.
language?
All right.
And then I would like to make an amendment that we send a memo to council that in next year in 2016, they study that issue. And if it's warranted to be on the ballot, it would become effective at the next term, which would be January 1st, 2020.
This isn't a charter amendment, is this?
No.
No, this is just a recommendation
To
that a letter goes out. Okay.
What I would do is, and
Okay.
if the commission would like, I would take the time for our next meeting and would submit a memo to council for your review, just to ask them for consideration to study it either themselves or in an ad hoc committee.
Okay, I'll second as amended. Chuck?
I have one
second.
question again. Under a city form of management, we don't have a mayor, council appoints the city manager, am I correct?
It depends on the structure.
Pardon?
We could not determine that. It would depend on the structure
No,
that
we're
council
taking
establishes.
simple form. If we decide to have a city form of manager, and people are going, is it possible that the voters could vote this person in other than council picking him? This is what I'm saying because of the fact, if I'm right, and I could be wrong, I'm getting old, if you have a city form of manager and council approves of it, and this has been proven by the Attorney General, you cannot recall that person because council approved of it. Under a mayor, the residents can recall it. If you're looking into it, I'd just like to know the answers, that's all.
Up to council.
Sounds like something that should be sorted as part of the study that they were doing.
I would ask, I mean, I know that this is only a recommendation to send to council, and I know that I don't want to belabor this, but could I offer an amendment to that would say city manager / and or chief of staff? Doesn't matter.
I would support that.
Okay.
I second that amendment.
All right, so it's a
So we have
amendment.
two amendments on the
Right,
floor.
so I've got two amendments to Mr. Milstein's, and, well, I don't have it like affected, it will be.
All right. Any more discussion on this? Hearing none. Why don't you call the roll? No, Mr. Hart was forfeited his right when he left the room.
If I recall, that was the ground rule we established.
I think so.
Yeah,
But
okay.
he could have called for a timeout.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
No.
Mr. Martin. Oh, quick.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, Mr. McLeary,
Yes.
Mr. Milstein,
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
and Ms. Briggs.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
That's all right.
All right. All right, where were we? We were at, we're moving on to Article 4, Section 13, removal of council members. Josephine, what?
Just, you know, remember this section, the language was wrong. It goes back to the previous, when the composition was 6, we discussed the current verbiage says, this is about the council removing its own. And the current verbiage is removal of council member requiring 4 of the 5 remaining. So you have an individual that you want to remove, but now you have, so that was 6.
Hey, Dave.
And now
next
it's time-
time, I'll talk to my wife before she passes away, okay? So I can attend more meetings, you Paul.
Okay, Ken, be
Dave.
quiet.
That was completely out of order.
All
Yeah,
right,
you
all right.
are completely out of
Come
order.
on, come on.
Point of order.
You gotta be a punk, huh?
Ken,
And you gotta make it personal.
You
Okay.
started it.
okay.
And so now that the composition is 5, would it be more logical
I
to?
know you are.
All right, guys, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn, and I hope people will support me, because I'm not gonna put up with this. So if we can't be quiet, and we can't be respectful, that's gonna be my motion. So what we're addressing now is what I consider, if you don't mind, I take that to be a correction that should have been done last time. Because it used to be that when we had 6 members, it took 4 of the remaining 5 to remove the 6th member. And so we're trying to correct that, so it would be 3 of the remaining 4 to remove the 5th member. And so that is the motion to change the language from 4 votes of 5 to 3 votes of 4. Does everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Does anybody have any, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion, light and upbeat, about this motion?
Besides that, the council person still can be recalled, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this is.
Does not affect the fact that they can be recalled.
It's okay.
All right, Josephine, call the roll.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
No.
Mr. Miglerini,
Yes.
Mr. Milstein,
Yes.
Ms. Sprague.
Yes.
And I believe that passed.
Yes.
What was the vote? Number-wise?
Yes, 6-1.
All right, moving on to Article 5, Section 5.04, which is the mayor's court, and I believe Peggy
Yes.
motion. So Peggy, why don't I turn it over to you? for
Sure.
that?
What I did, if you look at the current section, the language 501 says, one sentence, the mayor, in his discretion, may hold mayor's court pursuant to the statutes. So I would like to make a motion to amend section 501 as follows. Macedonia City Council may determine to establish a local mayor's court pursuant to the statutes of the state of Ohio, or to transfer these functions to the local municipal court pursuant to the statutes of the state of Ohio. So basically, Macedonia City Council, who sets policy, will review whenever, 10 years from now, maybe never, to change it and to either go to mayor's, have a mayor's court, or to go to municipal court. Not that complicated.
Okay. Josephine?
On the bottom of,
Isn't there something later that, no,
Oh.
isn't there somewhere else in the charter that I was of the opinion that council already had that power to do away with mayor's court? Why do I think that?
I think you're thinking of the public service department, I mean, the public safety director, if that's what you're thinking.
No, maybe not.
Well, right in section 4.14, right above it, it does say council may establish additional departments, boards, and commissions as the needs of the municipality may require. So maybe that is what you're thinking about, but I think because the mayor's court has its own chapter, I think that it's especially, and I think if we're going to make a change or give council and or the city the option to do either, which is the trend, regionalization, et cetera, they need the option, that's all. I don't know if it's a good idea, it may not be today, may not be ever, but I just want to give council and the mayor discretion.
The fact that it's
Well, you're not
statutory.
giving the mayor discretion if you're taking it away from him.
Well, he can veto it.
I mean, you gotta remember, whoever that mayor
I
may
know,
be.
I know.
The fact
But
that it's
council should set
statutory.
policy.
I understand they set policy, but this is the mayor is given the authority to sit as a mayor in the mayor's court, although unless he has the training and ability to do so. You know, most mayors have gone to a magistrate, and by taking it away, it may be an issue of how the city is able to run and operate the cost, as I've indicated before. And I would just hate to see a council group make a decision that an administrator is having to deal with budgets, other things, and having to send his police officers down to wherever on a weekly basis because
Oh, you know what though,
of that.
unless we
And
want
council,
to do,
council could make that change and then could impact the budget by so.
but unless we do a thorough analysis of all costs, we can't make that determination on our job. We may be making tons of money on mayor's court, like some other communities, and there would be absolutely no reason to change. But right now, we have we have no option to change.
Dave?
Yes.
Well, I think there is an option to change. I think, I'm sorry, Chuck, I think the option would be is that if council as a group decided to say that they will not fund mayor's court and veto that line item to operate mayor's court, that is, in a sense, stopping.
Well, I don't know about that, because in this, because this gives the mayor, he could go to court and get a court order to require the funds. But on the other hand, the mayor, let's say the mayor wanted to stop it, he could just stop it without any permission or even knowledge of the council. Is that what we want? Not really, we want it to work together.
Peggy, I think 3.3 may also have an impact, which that maybe need to be addressed in your motion. While you look at that, Chuck, I know you got it.
I have to agree with Joe in keeping it here, and as far
I
as,
don't know if that's applicable there.
as far as the money's concerned, and I'm not precise on this, from what I understand, and you know me, I'll dig into the facts, after all bills are paid in mayor's court, the police, we do make a little profit. Now, my only problem with a mayor's court out of here, even though we have the video, we may have to send a cop or two down there. I, as a resident, I haven't gotten a ticket. If I get a ticket, I'd rather come here than drive all the way down there and waste gas to pay a $10 fine. So, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah, you haven't gotten a ticket in a while.
You haven't had a ticket in a while.
$10 fines, Chuck. You're dating yourself. You must have got your last ticket when you were 16.
I'm a safe driver.
Not arguing
And
that.
every time I see a cop, I just wave a $20 bill and he keeps going.
Excellent. You better up that.
I just see this as a policy
Quit picking on police
decision,
officers.
and I just think that council should have that policy decision,
Real tough.
in being consistent with what I've talked
More
about.
than just the mayor's court, though?
Not this motion, just,
Do you have a second?
Your village,
what is it?
the information, village code.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you took the language, what Glenn Morgan took the language from.
When we started? Oh, this has been in there for, yeah,
Yeah,
Glenn
I'm
wrote
just
this,
saying, 'cause
and we
it's
had
in
a
the-
strong mayor back then,
Yeah.
so, our
All right,
former,
so now-
former government.
You just said a single motion, correct?
Yep, in one sentence, and I will give this to you.
Thanks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
Is, ready?
Sure.
Mr. Engel?
I always hate having to go first. I'm gonna say
You can switch it around.
no, that's right.
Go backwards. Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. LaParo?
No,
Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. Miglerini?
No.
Mr. Milstein?
Yes.
What was the vote?
Ms. Briggs?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I always forget Peggy.
Miss somebody?
No, that's,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I mean, yeah, it doesn't.
We have 4 to 3.
It is.
Who's defeated or passed?
It was defeated. Excuse me.
Okay, moving on to Article 9, Director of Law / Prosecutor. I think Peggy, I know this is an issue that you've been dealing with, and I think you have a motion that you'd like to make.
right, I would like to, make a motion to amend section 9 to, I'm suggesting that we add a section 9.01A to read, the mayor shall appoint a city prosecutor subject to the confirmation of the majority of the members of council, and then outline the duties of the prosecutor to provide legal assistance to the city during all criminal prosecutions. So the law director would have civil responsibilities, the prosecutor would have criminal prosecutions, and other issues that might be of the criminal nature.
All right, I'll be happy to second that. Is there anybody, is there any?
question. Since this has come up before, is the prosecutor under direct order of the law director?
I believe that as it is.
I mean, with this new,
No,
No,
it's
it would be an independent office.
independent, directly appointed, and responsible to the mayor only.
okay, that's all I wanna know.
Any further discussion or questions?
I just have a question. Would the individual be subject to confirmation similar to the other director positions?
I did say that, yes.
Okay, I wasn't
Would you like me to
sure.
read it again?
No.
Sure. The mayor shall appoint, to add a section 901A, to read as follows. The mayor shall appoint a city prosecutor, subject to the confirmation of the majority of the members of council. And then the duties of the prosecutor would be to provide legal assistance to the city during all criminal prosecutions. And I trust the law department will, add and edit, the needed language. So, this department head would be very similar to all the other department heads in their appointment.
Which now begs the question, or maybe I want to ask now, about the removal clause.
You know,
You know.
whatever is consistent with the other ones, I just.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say, I wanted to pull the words right back in.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
are we ready for roll call?
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're ready for roll.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. LaParo?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. Miglerini?
No.
Mr. Milstein?
Yes.
Ms. Spragens?
Yes.
And I have that motion passes 5-2.
Correct.
Okay. All right, moving on to Article 10, Section 10.01. This is the Planning Commission. I know that there are several thoughts on this, so why don't we start off the motion with Ken? I think you were hot on this issue. Would you like to make the motion?
Peggy, why did you make the motion?
Sure.
You're more intelligent than I am.
Okay, I wrote it up. I move to amend section 1001, composition and term of planning commission. And again, I will give this to Josephine, so you can have it. There be hereby created, a planning commission which consists of 5 electors of the municipality not holding other municipal office or appointment to be appointed for the term of the mayor. So there's 2 changes. There are 5 members of the residents, and that they all serve until the end of the mayor's term. And then the vacancy, no change there. The secretary is selected from the commission, no change there. And the chair of the planning commission shall be elected at the first meeting of each year from its members duly appointed. The members of the commission serve without compensation. They meet once a month, and a majority of the commission shall constitute a quorum and have the affirmative vote of 3 members to be necessary for any official action.
Okay.
So there's really 2 changes there, composition and term.
Are there any,
And didn't we discuss also that council approves the decisions of the planning commission?
Well, that's a different motion.
Okay.
Oh, that's different, because that would make, I want to make council the planning authority, but this is just the composition.
Okay, that's fine.
Peggy,
They are the planning authority, they have to
But-
confirm that already.
I know, but the suggestion, what I would like to do is make council the planning authority.
When
Council.
dedication comes.
no, we don't.
Yes,
Yes,
we
it should
do.
be.
The subdivisions and everything, yes, we do dedicate it. I think the ordinances.
Let me ask a question, and I think Chuck or somebody else had it. I'm trying to understand plating authority or whatever you're saying, but I think Ken is also saying that council should have the right to final review the planning commission's actions, and I don't think all the planning commission does more than just plat, right?
They certainly do.
And so you don't want, you're wanting, am I correct that you want planning council to have a review of all council, all planning commission decisions?
I do, because I just think a lot of these pro forma decisions could be made quite easily and quite quickly. I remember sitting through council meetings where we had 11 agenda items and we went through them in 20 minutes. But, you know, what I'm pointing out is that council needs to represent the residents, it needs to represent the people who live in our city, because the planning commission, in my opinion, should have a council check in the same manner that Stowe Council is able to approve the decisions of the planning commission, because the decisions of the planning commission should be recommendations and they should not be final. Because when they're final, if anybody disagrees with them, you have to file an administrative appeal in Summit County, very cumbersome, very expensive. You have to get a transcript, and normally an administrative appeal, I can tell you from experience, because I've done several of them, they cost 5 figures.
I'm thinking that, why don't we maybe do this? I'll make a motion, excuse me, I will second your motion, so we have it on the table. And maybe we'll discuss it and maybe make some amendments as we go along.
I would agree with that.
All right.
And then the 10.02 is the planning authority, then we'll come back to that one
Yes,
separately.
let's just talk.
So-
Wait a minute, we got a second? And now we have discussion.
I want to ask the question, if I understand Peggy, if it would pass, if goes into effect, if the mayor's term ends at the end of this year, everybody on the planning commission is done,
Well,
according to what you just said.
yes, but it would be, because this would be, the earliest it could be effective would be January 1st of 2016.
I agree with that, but
Right,
that's
it
when I'm,
could. It could, it doesn't
That's
mean that,
important.
but it could.
well, doesn't mean in accord is what we get in trouble with. All I'm saying is, if it goes into effect, the entire
But-
planning commission is gone, you gotta let
But
5
it's
members.
also important for the CEO or chief administrator or the mayor to have people who are on his team to be in position. And you don't want to be the mayor if you have hangovers from the previous administration. You need to have a finance director or law director that you want to work with, that you have the same goals and ideas about. And it's the same thing for planning commission, in my opinion. But I'm willing to amend that term. I'm willing to separate two motions for composition and term, if that's an issue for some of the members here.
Well, yeah.
But I think it's important to allow the mayor to have that.
The term issue is separate, and I'm not disputing whether they should fall at the time that the new election comes, so that there's an ability that to either confirm by council or mayor reappoint.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Then
agree
I'll
with
go
that.
ahead and amend my motion to just, at this time, to just move to amend the charter to allow the composition of the planning commission to consist of 5 electors of the municipality.
Effective January,
1, 2016.
Okay.
and take the concurrent out with the mayor's.
Right, I'll make that a separate motion.
All right,
Okay.
so I'll make a motion to approve it, so we're back, or second,
Second,
so we're still
okay.
back where we're
Okay.
at as amended. Joe, at the last meeting, you had some strong feelings, I thought, on the issue of the mayor should be in there and you feel, and representative plan.
I still have a strong feeling, regardless of who the mayor is going to be in the city in the future. The mayor is the person that they come to present their plan and sit down with. You may not like what the mayor does, this current or any other mayor. You may not like the individual, how they handle a particular planning issue, but we shouldn't change our form of government because we don't like the individual. We should only change it because it doesn't work. And it worked under my administration, I think it did at least. So I can't support changing, going to, and while I don't disagree that it would be nice to provide for 5 electors of the community to come in and do that, that process is already in place. But I still feel that the mayor needs to be at the helm of being able to bring forth a project that is in the best interest of the community, and be able to, take it to the planning commission and get it approved.
He still can do that.
But he's not then there chairing and bringing it forth,
And Joe, I would have to argue that that's a good thing.
Do you think?
And I'll tell you why I'm going to argue that. It's because I'm gonna get back to that Dries development on Highland Road, when I was the only planning commission that voiced strenuously against that plan because it was wrong. And you know what? You know what my reward was? The mayor saying, these are such good people. We want them to come into the city. Oh my God, we need them. And by the way, Martin, since you protested, we're gonna try to remove you from council. Okay? I want the mayor out. And the reason I want the mayor out
But
is because,
you're doing it on an individual.
no, I'm not doing it because he does that to a lot of plans,
Can't.
because he can still come to the planning commission, he can attend the meetings,
It's not
he can.
he, don't identify he, because you know it's not.
Could be
that-
she, in other words.
That's right.
I'm
Could be
sorry, I won't
she,
be
it could be
sexist.
A he, she, for all I know.
We would vote for each.
But the fact of the matter is, you gotta vote on this based on the best way of operating your government. And I don't think by,
And you know what
by
else I don't
providing
like
for
about the
this-
mayor coming to the, being on the planning commission? Because the mayor gets campaign contributions from these people.
Can't.
And I think that if we could sever that cord between the money and the plan. I think that's a good thing.
All right, now,
I mean,
So, let me ask you this, would you feel differently, Ken, with Joe's proposal if council had the ultimate review? It seems to me like a compromise.
see, here's the problem that I have.
Because
with
I think
council
there is
review.
points with Joe
You're
saying.
convoluting the system. You know, to bring back things to council, you got a board here that is serving to review and approve. You may not agree with them. I don't agree with them all the time. And you know that. But the fact of the matter is that if you want to change the dynamics of that, then you change the person that's in charge of it. You don't change the system because the system has been working for years.
Joe,
Joe.
over the last 10 years, answer me this. Has the planning in the city been better, or has it been worse?
Ken?
Joe,
were on
you know the
planning
answer to
commission.
that. You
You
know.
were on the planning commission.
Yeah, and you know what? There were a lot of things that happened there that I absolutely detested. And I felt a lot of times I had to go along with them just because the mayor had just sold, you know, I hate to drive down Route 82 right now. What's that's turned into? It is now a nascent version of Southgate, and it will grow and the blight will increase.
Joe, do you know any other cities that have the mayor and chair planning commission and/or where the city council is not the planning authority?
Well, I think the planning authority aspect of it is that council does make the confirmation of all dedications of all roads and streets, what have you, in the city as
Okay.
currently. The planning authority gives the ability to the planning commission, which is I'm not quite sure, I haven't investigated every community, but I'm assuming that most planning commissions are the planning authority for the
Okay.
community.
Well, I do work in a lot of cities, and I don't know of any.
That have
I don't know any cities, and if anybody does, I'd like you to speak
Well,
up
even
now.
Even our county charter provides for that.
But the county planning commission, as you know, everything goes to county council. County council is the planning authority. County planning commission makes a recommendation for the townships. The townships go with the plat, they go through the planning department, they get a recommendation from the administration, the planning commission reviews, it goes to county
But
council.
it's really a rubber stamp process.
It doesn't matter, it's the process, and if the county council says no, then it doesn't get approved. Doesn't happen very often, because there's a lot of due diligence, and that's what I would expect here. I'm just thinking, and I don't think it's the planning commission work. I can't tell you how many times, when I was on council, something got approved by planning commission, and I didn't even know about it as a council person.
Well, but then you had to rely on your council representative, so I mean.
And then you know what
Yeah.
happens, Peggy? Here's what happens. Something gets approved by planning commission, and it's a bad idea, and the consequences are horrendous, and guess who they call up?
They call council.
They call up a councilman. They go, how did you ever let this happen? And then you'll say to them, well, you have to understand the planning commission. Oh, so you're not gonna take responsibility in the city for what's taking place here. Good, I'll find somebody who will.
And the thing can come to planning commission, be passed before the representative of the council even has a chance to report to the rest of us. Chuck, go ahead.
First of all, we must understand the population of Macedonia in the last 20 years has changed. On my street, there's only 3 old fogies are left. Everybody's brand new with kids. They love 82. They love shopping, whether Ken thinks it's no good, okay? They don't go down and look at Western Reserve. They've got kids where they can save money, okay? As far as I'm concerned, I think this city's gone beautiful. Even with all the stores, I don't have to run the Southgate on that. I give Joe credit, he brought a lot of business in here, okay? When I go to a store, I don't look, oh, look at the top. I look at the price, okay? People want all this Western Reserve.
Chuck, did you get invited to that breakfast place?
No,
No?
no.
Well, I didn't either. I just thought they might have invited you, but not me. Joe didn't get invited either.
But he was
Because I
there.
planned that I heard if you were invited, you could actually bring 3 friends. so.
Well, see, but that's, again, people must understand, we've changed over the years. And like I said before, the majority of people, and I talked to quite a few people, I stick my nose in where I don't belong, love the way 82, all these new stores, all the shopping. They don't worry about Western Reserve. All they're worried about is price, easy parking with their kids and get in and out. And as far as I'm concerned, let's leave it, it hasn't been broken, don't change it. At least I'll make sure if it, when I go campaigning for or against any of these issues, again, the majority of voters, and I'm gonna get a walking list, is how many people we are and whether, whether they're concerned at. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't tell people how to vote. I give them my ideas of why it's good or bad and let them vote, but let's leave it alone.
I'd like to call the question.
Could I make a motion to amend before you
Sure.
call the question? I would like to make a motion to amend Peggy's motion so that the council has the right to review and approve.
That's not my motion. My motion on.
I know, but I'm wanting to add this to your motion.
Oh, add it to
Yes.
combine? Because
Yeah.
I'm just talking composition.
Well, is there a different section that mine
Yes.
would go in?
Yes, yours is
All right,
under
that's
1002.
All right.
Mine's under 1001.
That's the question I initially asked her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to call the question for 1001, one motion composition that the planning commission consists of 5 electors of the municipality.
Is your motion going to be attached to that then?
No,
It'll be another section.
it'll be another section. Okay.
I think they're mutually exclusive.
All right, that's fine.
All right, so, but and it'll be effective January
January
1.
1st. Thanks for asking.
Yes, and,
2016.
all right, I'm gonna do the roll call now, but then I wanna go backtrack just for a minute. Mr. Engel, this is for just the composition of 5 electors, 5 residents.
I'm gonna hold on.
Okay. Ms. Hannah,
Mayor would not be in.
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Miglerini,
No.
Mr. Milstein,
Yes.
Ms. Spragans.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. Now, I just want to regret a moment, and this, I should have pointed this out. For every previous adoption, and I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth, but we probably should end with effective January 2016. And I don't think it requires us to go back and make the motion if this was the general knowledge for everyone. That the primary, well, that would be difficult, wouldn't it, on that one?
Well, that would be January 1st, 2017.
Yeah, okay.
I think everyone understands.
Yeah, we understand.
Okay, so I can just put that in for January 1?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we just, unless stated otherwise, all the amendments that are on the table and that have been approved on January 1st, 2016?
Except for the primary?
Right.
Okay, perfect.
And
Everybody,
it's-
Required by law. to
Right,
be
Right.
or required.
Okay.
is everybody happy with that?
Yeah, thank you, Joseph, because that's important.
Joe? Right, okay. All right, moving on to 10 point, so this one passed 5-2. The next area dealing with Article 10 would be 10.02 composition.
Oh, that term, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, I don't know where everybody
Got it.
follows,
All right.
because I do wanna encourage, I mean, I think if this is consistent, it allows more power in the mayor to make those appointments, it allows him to have people aboard his team, her team, that are consistent with his values, goals, and ideas for the city. So I'll go ahead and make the motion that the terms be, and I don't, I guess, because I don't want to kick anybody off who's currently serving. So the wording would be that at the expiration of the current terms of the planning commission, the new terms would then begin to continue as the end of the term. You know what I'm talking about.
I do, and there's something in part of the charter when they first started.
It's at the very front.
Yeah, something about.
Grandfathering.
Yes,
Yeah.
they don't use
So-
the word, right.
Right, so so I know
Well,
they used to be.
the only fears you have, Peg, and I'm not disagreeing that they should all come due, but the only fears that you do have is that at the end of a term,
I
you wind
realize
up-
that.
you wind up wiping out a commission that
But-
then has no
and-
continuity of
Okay, but think about the other side. The other side side is you get a new mayor who has totally different ideas and goals than the previous administration, and he or she's got all these hangover people that he can't get anything done because they don't agree.
I agree with you that
So,
way too.
it's-
So I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
Right, right.
But we're always trying to reinvent government, and that's the problem that we have.
You know, we are.
We're always trying, as soon as a new regime comes in, you're reinventing it. You're starting all over again. It's a shame that we do that.
Would be, in section 19.02, it makes reference to, shall continue in office and in the performance of their duties until provisions have been otherwise made. But that
I
goes
do.
all the way back to 71.
Right.
Right,
Well,
that's because of the
But I think that's the
transition,
kind of
that's,
language that,
Yeah. And I do want to make the motion to have the term of office for planning commission be consistent with the mayor's term.
I concur, is that okay?
That's fine, you know, but with the understanding, you know, whenever they expect, what do they expect, August, planning commission, or July?
July 3rd, it's a
Yeah,
very
it's
strange
not- I
time.
know, it is a strange
So I'll
time.
have to look at the last date of the last,
Well, it's usually the even number years.
yeah, the expiration, but I'll have to,
So are you suggesting this for planning commission, all boards that serve?
No, I'm just making the motion for planning commission. I mean, I'm willing to discuss it for other boards, but this is just for planning.
I think we have to find a place for voters at that point.
I-
all
I-
voters. All right,
at the
as a-
last term, something, we'll figure that out, he'll figure that out as last term, and then I'm gonna look back at that 19, thank you.
So I made the motion, not in for a second.
I'll second. Is there any further discussion on Peggy's motion to end terms with the mayor?
Concur with the mayor's.
Any other discussion? Hearing none? I hear none?
I don't think it's a good idea, but I'm gonna vote for it.
Okay. Why don't you call the roll? But I think you should still call Mr. Clark. Even though he's not going to.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
No,
Mr. Martin,
What?
Mr. Martin?
How do you vote?
Oh, I thought you were trying to skip me.
That might be possible. Mr. Martin,
Yes, I'll vote for it, even though I don't agree with it.
Mr. Miglerini,
Yes.
Mr. Milstein,
yes.
and Ms. Brandon.
Yes.
I have that it passed 6-1.
Yes.
All right, moving on.
And, you know, I just want to qualify why I voted yes on that, by the way, if I may.
Sure.
Real quickly, is that, in hindsight, thinking about it, is that when that comes to bear where the mayor takes office and he's looking at all these board members, it's either that he's going to be able to say to them, are you willing to work with me or see my agenda? And if they are not, then you can make that decision at that time, so.
Well, a lot of them will want to stay on too, and a lot of them will be buddies of the mayor anyway. Come on, let's face it, Joe. They'll all be buddies. It's all buddy-buddy around here, you know?
Oh, Joe had
People don't
somebody who was
criticize
on
each
planning
other. They
commission
see
that
somebody
wasn't
doing
your buddy
something wrong, they
for
just
a
don't
long
look
time,
because he's a
so-
buddy.
He had somebody, Kurt. He was on planning.
He and I didn't see eye to eye on anything.
Who?
Kurt,
Kurt Long.
when Kurt was on planning and Joe was mayor. that
Tell you
was-
what, the best planning commission was Ron Kovach, Ken Martin, Bob Fitzgerald.
It's advertisement.
Joe Miglerini.
And who was the fifth one?
Who was the fifth one, Joe?
It might have been Kurt.
Yeah, Kurt Wahlbaker. That was the best goddamn board. Boy, those were 5 son of a guns. Kurt be sitting there and said, I
I think we need a person that says God.
All right, let's,
Okay,
all right.
Remember those 11 o'clock meetings with
I
DDR?
think this is gonna be this one.
I mean, you know.
All right.
Hey, wait, the funniest thing was when Carboni came in. Remember Carboni? R.B. Carboni, the people who built all the schools? And they tried to intimidate you? I was sitting there thinking like, oh my God, these 2 Italians are gonna go to war pretty soon. There's gonna be bodies all over the street.
In the river.
You got Franco fired, I think. Remember he came in with those plans, you threw them out? You did a good job that day, Joe.
Jump in at any time, Mr. Engel.
I don't know where to jump
I'll
in.
get this done.
All right, we need to continue with the meeting.
Don't
instead of-
the wrong guy.
Instead of what an admission of incompetence. The big yellow gun is, or is it the white black gun?
Do you know but do you know the guy who did that was an auxiliary sheriff who was actually an insurance executive, and they had let him participate in that raid or sting simply because he made a major contribution to the sheriff's department.
Wow.
Honest to God,
Pay to
he was
play.
not a full-duty sheriff. Is that right, Joe? Son of a- and now he's gonna spend the rest of his life in prison with the sodomites.
No, he's gonna get off.
Dave,
All right,
Are
we-
we're planning to go past 8:30 tonight?
We're hoping not to,
No.
but we're gonna try to get
Let's
these
see
boys
where
off
we're at.
memory lane and get going.
Yeah.
Why, do you need to leave at 8:30?
No, I was gonna suggest we take a recess if we're gonna be staying later.
No, let's see how far we can go.
We're just trying to lighten things up.
Do you need a red break? We'll take a break.
No, I don't.
All right, let's move on.
I brought some extra medication in my car.
All right, are there any other motions relating to planning commission?
Yes.
Go, Peggy.
Well, 10.02,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that the planning commission, and I don't know exactly how we should word it, becomes, makes a recommendation to council, and I guess council becomes the planning authority, needs to go in the council section, but I'm not sure which section.
And council has final approval of
Well, right,
recommendations.
right. As soon as you gain planning commission recommendation, then council becomes the final authority.
Can we kind of clarify this a little bit? You know, I'm okay with them coming in and saying that they're the plating authority. If you want to go to the plating authority aspect of it, but every time somebody comes in with a shed or something very simple, do we need to have it go to the city council? I mean, you're convoluting the system.
I don't believe so.
Let's talk about
Well, what about
plating,
Made,
which is okay. I'm okay if you want to go with plating, let's go with plating.
What if you turn it around the other way and empower council to decide when? So they can decide.
I don't think you
No,
can do
you
that.
can't do it that way.
Is
This
it
is
more
charter, so
money
you
thing,
gotta
cause I'll
dictate.
say I
That's
didn't
on
sign
them
up for
if
this
they don't
gig.
keep an eye
Well,
on
what
the
about
agenda.
major and minor subdivision?
What's a major, what's a minor subdivision?
If you want to say any plats, change of plats, those types of things, I'm okay with that. But if you want to talk about somebody that comes in to get a shed approved, and it's got to go to the planning commission for then ultimately, to the city council for approval, I mean, you're convoluting the system.
Well, rezonings already go to council for final
So
approval.
let's simplify it.
So
Let's go to plats,
Okay.
major subdivisions, minor subdivisions, simple plats. Those, I agree that maybe they, get council to approve them so that there's a check and balance there.
Joe, there's just not that many sheds really brought before the
It's not-
planning commission.
Ken, maybe it's not just a
Driveways, any
shed.
building permit.
I mean,
I'm talking
come
about-
on.
Listen, I'm talking about anything outside of major subdivisions. But when you talk about, are you gonna talk about every time?
What's major? I want,
Let's talk about, somebody comes in and they wanna, add an addition onto their house and they don't meet zoning, they gotta come to the planning commission. And so you want council to be dealing with that? Yeah.
Joe, I was on the planning commission for almost 20-some years, and that situation is not.
But what you're
It does
suggesting-
not occur with enough frequency to warrant your concerns about bringing that type of project to the city council.
But you're also trying to attack a situation that because of perhaps who you don't like that's in office, and that's not the right reason to make a major change in our.
Wait a minute, you're saying that I'm doing this because I don't like the mayor?
No, you're doing this because you don't like the results of what comes out of the planning commission.
No, I'm doing it because I think the results that come out of the planning commission need to be reviewed by council, and that council will actually produce better results than the planning commission in certain instances. Hopefully, the planning commission will make good recommendations, and by making good recommendations, especially knowing that they're going to be reviewed by council, you'll have better results. I'm looking for better results.
I'm just looking from the standpoint of not creating a more convoluted bureaucracy system. I don't want the city to get bogged down with having all of these different approvals in a process.
All it is, it's doing what a lot of other cities have done. Stowe,
And I'm suggesting that.
Stowe looks good. Stowe
We're
looks
talking
well.
about minor subdivisions, major subdivisions, you know, if you wanted to gear it to some sort of thing like that, but if you talk about everything that comes to planning commission has to go to council, I can't agree with that.
Well, you know what, my opinion would be, I'm sorry, Chuck, my opinion would be that, you know, if it doesn't work, then 5 years later, the new charter review commission can take a look at it.
Chuck will take care of that.
Okay, sitting in all the planning commission meetings, the way the law states right now,
It's boring.
let me talk, then you can open your mouth later. If I come to the planning commission and I go through every ordinance, the building department, the planning commission goes over and says it's approved because I meet the law, okay? What happens if council says, no, am I rejected? Again, if I'm rejected, that means I have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and pay there. If the Board of Zoning Appeals says yes, then make council look stupid. If they say no, I have to go to court because we have a court case pending right now. So that's my question is, if we have competent people on the planning commission, council may not be competent, stick their nose, stay out of there. If you meet every building, Ken, you were on there and I said at every meeting, if you meet every requirement for you wanna put an office building in, you go to the building department, you go see Joe, I was there too. Yes, 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 I'll do everything you want. Why should shut up. Why should the council say no? Because they don't like me? You're gonna have more lawsuits than you'll ever have, thank you.
Let me just say one thing. I'm with you, but I'm also with Joe. But I'm thinking that council doesn't want to review every sign, but maybe everything but signs. Council should have the right to review. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
You said that to me twice in 10
Look,
years.
here's the problem. Planning commission approves a lot of concepts. And when they approve a concept, and I'll give you an example, Discount Tire, okay?
Bad concept.
Does Discount Tire, do they meet all of the requirements? Yeah. Okay, they meet all of the requirements. And you know what? They meet all of the requirements too, Chuck, if they could build a cheaper building. Planning is not just having a builder, developer, follow the letter of the law. Planning is also determining what character of community you want and making sure that that particular structure fits in with the character of your community. Hudson or Brecksville or so forth, okay? So planning, in my opinion, is more than just following the ordinance of the community. Now, here's the key. Discount Tire comes into planning. They get approval, concept. And council looks at it and says, oh, hey, guys, I see you want this concept approved. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, we're gonna go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and get a variance, so we're gonna be pushed very, very close to Route 82. Council said, geez, you know what? We don't think we like that, so we're not going to approve your concept. So they don't even make it to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get that setback variance, which they have. And I tell you right now, that has just ruined Route 82. That is
Did they get a
Southgate
variance?
City. Pardon?
Did they get a variance for that?
Of course. Look at how they
I
got
know,
a
but
setback
I
variance.
still wouldn't approve, there's no reason to approve that.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
I think the setback is where it's at. I think the problem is that the building is overpowering.
But it's still a concept issue.
Yeah,
It's a
but-
concept issue.
yeah, if I'm mistaken on that, Joe, I apologize.
The mayor has
But
always
the concept
insisted
I'm
that
trying to
it was
make.
That the setback is the same, so
Yeah,
then
the
it's got to
setback-
be reasonable caused by the giant
Giants,
skyscraper.
yeah, the building is too high for
I think
Yeah,
the
I'm sorry I
setback-
misstated that then.
Setbacks do get modified based on building height in our community. Our zoning requirements in Macedonia, there's not just setback requirements established, but if a building is a certain height, you have to have that as the minimum setback as well.
And you know
I
when,
think it's 35 feet on a B2, which I believe that is.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is if you have a building that's 52 feet high,
I don't think that makes a
it
difference.
becomes 52 feet for the setback.
No, I don't think so.
But I don't think we allow anything over 35 feet.
No, I think you're talking about the sign ordinance.
No, I'm talking about
The
building.
sign ordinance provides for something.
So
So
Josephine
Well,
has some.
I may be interpreting this incorrectly. Peggy said that Twinsburg is the plating authority, and I went under the planning commission and its powers, I may be reading this incorrectly. The planning commission shall have all powers to consider the following matters: land use and other zoning regulations, location or vacation of public buildings, thoroughfares, public ways, and open spaces, public and private utilities, planning of developments and subdivisions of land, comprehensive and master planning. Such other powers as are now or may hereinafter be conferred upon it by council. All matters before council pertaining to zoning, and then they go on that we do. No matter so referred which receives a negative report or recommendation shall be enacted by council unless and then it goes to the voting process. So is that really doing it? Am I making sense?
I don't know, without looking at it again, but I do know the council looks at everything. They do approve all the, one of the things we could do, if it's important to, how many items are on an average planning commission agenda? How many, would you say, 5?
Sometime you're there 10 or 12, sometime you got 2.
No, I'm just asking the number of items, 2,
Some
10?
are 2 and sometimes it's 10.
About 5, yeah.
But
Yeah.
here's what's different, and I will just interject. Planning commission dropped down to 1 meeting a month, unless something's urgent and then they have a special. So, but by fact of decreasing it has increased the agenda slightly, but I don't think by a lot.
Okay, but let's say 5 or 6 is pretty manageable, so.
and
my
let's
thought is-
consider too, the city doesn't have that much building too.
Right, so my thought is, it's not gonna get more, it's gonna get the same or less, is that we would allow, this is what we're gonna do, is we would allow council to approve the items of planning commission by a consent agenda. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's like the whole recommendation that planning commission approves at that meeting will go to council for the next regular meeting. Council looks at it, if there's just signs or small items that are not important, they just approve it with one motion. However, anybody on council has the right to remove one of those items, approve the consent agenda for all the other non-issue items, and that one issue, then it goes out and then it has to be special. So I would say out of a year, 10 months of the year, it will be a consent agenda with one quick motion. Then 1 or 2 maybe meetings will say, oh, we're having a big subdivision, we have this, then we pull it out.
And I like that idea too, simply because it keeps council members in the loop in terms of what's happening with planning.
their
Very
representative is on the board.
But it
Pardon?
won't be next year.
Well, depending on how, if a charter amendment passes.
Are you familiar with cities that have the consent agenda that you just?
A lot of
described?
cities have consent agendas.
Particularly,
Planning?
well, these small items,
Yeah, for minor items, county,
Yeah,
Sunny
Nancy
County
County
does.
doesn't because we don't
Out
have
of the
that kind of-
100 pieces of legislation we used to do every council meeting, let's say 80 of them were on the consent agenda. And that was okay because it was already vetted out through planning commission or finance committee or border control, so it didn't matter. But anytime something was on the consent agenda, any member of council had the right to pull any item out, table it, not approve it, further discussion for any reason. And I think that would solve both issues.
But then, then council would have, if somebody pulled something off the agenda, the consent agenda.
Then they would
council
vote on
has to
it
vet
separately.
and Vote on it, and it's a yes or no vote based on what council says.
Right.
I could live with that. Yes, Chuck?
My only problem again is if we go this way and somebody's got money and they go to court, which is happening now, I followed everything the building department told me. I got all the plans. I met every requirement. Council said no. Now, why do we have a building? I go spend all my time, I sit with I would remember when Joe sat with all these builders and he said, you gotta do this, 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 and this. The guy came to the meeting, approved. I don't want council sticking their nose in because half of them right now don't know what they're doing. No offense, I'm not referring to you. My question is,
Hey Chuck, I share your opinion.
I'll take that back since you agreed with me. No, what I'm saying, Dave, really, is
what you're saying.
why do we have to have a building department if we have qualified people up there and somebody on council say, no, you're gonna end up in lawsuits?
Chuck, what about Joe Salemi?
Nothing wrong with Boston.
Remember Joe Salemi wanted to put the mini warehouses next to the high school?
And he had every right by the
You
ordinance.
got sued for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were a brave man.
Did he put it up?
That was an act of political encouragement.
Did he put it up?
Macedonia. No, we won in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
He sued me individually.
That's what I'm saying is, the court has now ruled on something like that. All right?
Sorry, Lena.
All right, any
I'm
other?
gonna you know what, I don't know what kind of support's out there, so
I
either
like
call
this.
the question or withdraw
right.
the motion,
No,
because
no.
we need to move on.
Is the motion with the,
Okay, so if I can restate it,
all right,
that, and I probably will have to wordsmith it, maybe we can look at it again, next time, or maybe review it, is to amend section 1002 to allow the planning commission to make recommendations to council, to put it somewhere in the council section, that council becomes the final decision maker for the, planning commission items, and allow planning council to act on a consent agenda.
okay, I'll second that motion as amended. Any other discussion, or can we move to vote? All right, hearing none, let's move to vote. Josephine, would you call the roll?
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
No.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Miguelini,
No.
Mr. Milstein,
I'm gonna vote no. I guess I'd like to follow that up with a comment similar to what Joe did. I've heard everyone's arguments. You've heard my opinions in the past about my take on the planning commission here. Without restating those or going into any discussion about that, I'll simply say that I'm not convinced that putting everything from planning commission in front of the council is the way to help solve the problems. I think the problem actually might solve itself if we work on improving quality of the constituency of the commission itself. So that's why I'm voting no.
Ms. Briggs,
Yes.
Okay, so the motion as amended passes, I think, 4-3. Okay. All right, moving on to Article 10, Section.
Good job,
Point
Peggy.
3.
Well, there's one item left.
Oops, I'm sorry.
I would make a motion then that a member of the appointed planning commission also be a member of the BZA.
I'll second that.
So there's some continuity between the planning commission and the BZA.
A
But he-
member, just
I'm saying
a single.
a member that serves on the planning commission shall be then elected by its members to have one of their members serve on the BZA board as well.
somebody would have no vote.
One member.
He would have that vote.
Yeah, I think,
Oh,
if
he
I
would
may,
have
I think that that's an issue, because I think, I see the BZA as kind of an independent tribunal. And so I don't think the person from the planning should be there with a vote. I certainly think that there should be a requirement that planning either provide a representative to BZA to explain and discuss and argue their position, or at least send some written requirement. But I don't think they should be a vote, but that's just.
Excuse me, Dave, but if what Joe's talking about, they're having that vote, it's a conflict of interest by law, because you're on the planning commission, you vote, and you go, Now, I've gone to most of those board of zoning, anybody can go and speak your piece, but it's allowing me on the planning commission to vote and being board of zoning appeals member, I check this out as a conflict of interest. It's illegal. No offense, Joe.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, how do you lawyer guys feel about the clause in the charter that says you shall hold no other public office?
Got $200 and I'll tell you.
I said to go to the city.
What are you talking about?
In the charter, it says that when you're appointed to a board or a commission or you're serving on a council, you cannot hold any other public office. Isn't that a public office, a BZA position?
Just because it's paid, you mean?
I don't know, I'm just
How
asking.
much
It's
they
in
pay,
the
do
charter.
they still pay you $15 a position?
$15.
40, you gotta pay the.
I don't think
Really?
even if we didn't pay him, I don't know if it
Oh,
would be.
I
I want to be appointed to that board.
I don't know. I never thought about it. It's
Or you-
interesting.
Well, but holding no other office would be on the elected position, no?
I don't know.
I think it's only on those that are elected to council shall hold no other office. I don't think.
But doesn't it say that for BCA and planning?
Don't forget, Peggy, they get paid. That's the only commission gets paid.
We can,
I do know that, I know that this is maybe not the same, but we have a charter amendment that requires the service director to attend the park and recreation meetings, but he shall have no vote. And that's why I asked you. It requires him to attend because he should be listening to stuff about the park. But he can deliberate, he can comment, but he cannot vote, and that's in the charter.
Okay, then I'm gonna retract my motion, and I'm gonna make another motion.
Okay.
That the board, that the motion would be is that a member of the planning commission elected by the planning commission shall attend the BCA board meetings and shall have no vote.
I'll second that one.
Should you say for the purposes of explaining?
For the purposes of explaining and being part of the continuity process.
Well, remember that, you're putting this, there's gonna be a ballot. The ballot is going to be very succinct. So some of this language in here is gonna, I'm not belittling anybody.
I understand, I'm just saying that,
Joe,
whatever way we can do it.
You sure you wanna, you might wanna reconsider that, because the thing that popped into my head was this idea that if we assign an individual to do that, what if that person voted no and they go to BZA? You know, they're gonna be trying to convince BZA to go no. Whereas if we allow a representative from planning commission, hopefully the one that's strongly promoting it or strongly against it, maybe both of them will show up and say their piece.
Well, I think a lot of times, and I've been before the BZA and I know how the BZA operates, I think that a lot of times they are in question as to why is this here?
Right.
What am I doing with this? Why are we being asked to deal with this? And I'm hoping that this process would bring some clarity to them by providing a spokesperson from the planning commission who has had some in-depth involvement with whatever project's coming forth, that they can then convey that back to the BZA.
Well,
Whether it's a
I
nay
agree
or
with
a
what you're
yay
saying.
on what they vote, I understand what you're saying. And I think that you face that each and every time. I mean, you can taint a vote by an individual, it's there, regardless. You can push the envelope any which way you want, is I guess what I'm saying. So I don't think it's gonna make a whole lot of difference, because it may be on a negative side or maybe on a positive side. And I hear what you're saying, I appreciate what you're saying.
The language from the service director is be a non-voting member of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
And I think it's only to just give some continuity, that's the reason I'm suggesting.
Does the language that she suggested be a non-voting, is that?
Non-voting,
That would be
that's
with me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but to be there to provide some continuity.
Any further discussion on Joe's motion? Did someone?
There are communities, by the way, I know,
Not
one is
to-
Mayfield Village that has it in their charter, that allows for a BZA board member or a planning commission member to be on the BZA board.
If not, I'll second. the
Okay.
motion. Okay. Any further discussion? Why don't you call the roll?
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer,
Yes.
Mr. LaParle?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Sure.
Mr. Miglerini?
Yes.
Mr. Milstein?
No.
Ms. Reagan?
Yes.
And my count is that passed 6 to 1. All right. Anything else on planning commission? Okay. Hearing none, the next section is November elections.
She- Well, it doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to everybody else. Because Ms. Sprague's wanted to change voting
Got
for.
it, got it.
Oh, the zoning,
It's
yeah.
just a little
I
bit
just-
to help trigger
I-
memory.
I think that, thank you, I think that I'd like to make a motion to amend section 1003, that it says, the last sentence, just to say that said election is to be held concurrently with the next general election to be held in November, scheduled throughout the county.
This is for what?
This is when we
Referendum
have,
vote.
yes, when you have, a
Zoning.
yes.
Zoning referendum.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the Joe Miglerini.
Tony can go.
Well, I'm trying to refresh your memory, I'm being subtle.
Yeah, you're subtle as
Well, it had to, for me, it has to do with, voter turnout in special elections, that's all.
Mr. Miglerini, you think you want to?
Yeah, and given the fact that I've been through this, but I want to say this. I'm going to give you an example of what occurred while I was trying to get some rezoning done at the time. There was a project. Project was probably worth $17, $18 million. That was for the rezoning of land here on Valley View for the skilled nursing facility. At the same time that Macedonia was considering it here, they were considering one in Twinsburg. Twinsburg's hands down passed it. That one went in. When it came to the need, or have the certificate of need for the beds, they couldn't get the beds. Why? Because Twinsburg probably absorbed it. We lost that project because Macedonia sat on it. And so when you try to push something out 6, 12 months later, you're going to cause yourself to be in a second position perhaps to another community that may throw it on the ballot quicker. And I think it's an issue for the community to deal on a case-by-case basis. And if you want to make that decision based on whether it's in a May primary or in a November primary, or a November general election, is something, or a special election, or whatever the case is, it should be based on that this may be good for the community, it may bring additional tax revenue to the community, and we lost that project. Now, the good thing is, we have a skilled nursing facility that is coming in now on the same site, and it's about a $17 million project, and it is coming, so that's a good thing. But we lost because of that.
With all due respect, I think zoning doesn't have to do with an individual specific project. It has to do with land use. And if it's good for the land and the area to be zoned a specific way, it should be done and approved no matter what project happens to be proposed.
And that's why we have, within that precinct, it has to pass.
I get that.
Yes, Chuck. I bet I know what you're gonna say, but tell me again.
I got the records at home. If a person wants something on the ballot and has to pay for each precinct, that is a special election for the Attorney General, and I got the paperwork, and the Board of Elections, all right? If somebody wants something go on a June ballot, that is a special election. If you pay for it, like Joe had to pay the $15,000 at that time. A regular scheduled election is when a person who has enough petitions doesn't have to pay for it. As far as the Attorney General and the Board of, and like I said, I got the figure. May and November are regular schedule. Anything else is a special. So if you want to put something on and you have enough, like right now, if we have this all legally done, all that, say we wanted to put it on the May ballot. That's a special, we'd have to pay for it. The charter said R1 to anything else must go on a regular schedule, which means May and November. So that's what I'm saying, we gotta watch what we're doing here.
So you're saying the Board of Elections considers May and November regular scheduled? They're not special?
All right,
Is that what you're saying?
right, according to
Okay.
them.
Okay, that's
Now,
fine.
if you wanna go on any other,
Okay.
you
Great.
pay for it.
Okay, I understand that, but currently the charter says to be held concurrently with the next election regularly scheduled throughout the county. That's what it currently says.
Right.
So that means it could only be done in May or November,
Right.
correct? But wasn't the election in August?
And you gotta pay for it, because they consider it
Okay,
special.
but that's not what you just said.
No, you didn't hear me. According to the Board of Elections, I don't want to bring all my paperwork with me. If a party or group wants to put something on the ballot, and that date is considered special,
I
you
understand
pay
that.
for it.
But that's not what our charter says. Our charter doesn't allow that. It doesn't say, if you want to spend the money, you can get an election anytime you want it.
Depends who reads and interprets the charter. The charter.
I don't see this there.
The charter says, when you go from R1 to anything
I know,
else.
but I've been around, Chuck.
All right.
I know what the
Straighten her
charter
out,
says.
Chuck.
What?
Straighten her out.
How do you straighten out a woman these days? No offense.
You know,
I had 9 sisters, so I know what I'm dealing with.
Chuck, I got a question for you. With all
And
these
a wife,
records,
if I remember.
Chuck, Chuck,
And a
listen.
wife, if I remember.
I had one,
I
yeah.
have a serious question for Chuck.
Going right for the,
Yeah.
Refrigerator in there.
That's why I've been happy 40 years, I got rid of it.
Chuck.
story.
I had a serious question. Chuck, with all these records you have at your house and all these documents that you collected, do you have any room to live there? I mean, I've been hearing
Hey,
this.
wait a minute. Now that you said that, I am the only 81-year-old male in Macedonia that has 4 women in bed with him right now. And I got pictures of it. My kitty cats are 4
Mr.
of them.
Chairman, can we return to the?
Yeah, let's go. All right. Any other discussion? Thanks, David.
I made a motion, right?
You did.
I know
Is there
we
a
seconded
second?
it.
There's no second.
I'll be happy to second it if we can proceed to vote.
And this is just for November. to put
This
the
is
word-
just to add, which is, I think that's what it says.
Clarify it for me again, please.
All right, just to say the election has to be held at the next general, and I put general election, which is held in November, because that's how they differentiate primary, special,
Right.
or general.
And that's what I put
Okay.
concurrently with general election November.
All right, so we're gonna vote on, it has to be on the general election. Why don't you call the roll if everybody's ready to vote?
Mr. Eagle,
No.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. LaParo,
Yes.
Mr. Martin. I'm sorry,
No.
Mr. McGarry,
No.
Mr. Milstein,
No.
Ms. Sprague.
Yes.
I have that the motion passed, or excuse me, was defeated 4-3, is that correct,
That
Josie?
is correct.
Okay, so moving on to the fractional issue. There are two, we've already discussed that with the veto, and taking care of that. I think there are 2 other sections where there is a fractional issue.
Right. Under 303A11, under the duties, executive power, it says department head shall be appointed by the mayor subject to the confirmation of majority members elected to council, or council may disaffirm the 2/3. And again, I think this is like one of those things that was missed. So every place else in the charter, it says, for the removal process, now, the current one is that they found 4 affirmative votes, so it probably should read 4 affirmative votes. Right now, currently in the charter, following me, in
Right.
every removal process, it says removed by council by 4 affirmative votes. These are all the ones that were correctly modified.
That was based on 6 council members.
Right.
No, no,
Yes.
no, yeah.
4, 6 council.
That is true, except that when the charter was amended in 2009, all the the fractions came out, because they were fractions, they did come out.
Most of us.
Most of them, I'm saying,
They didn't. Not all of them came out.
well, 2 of them, 3 of them, there's still 3 fractions in the entire charter,
Right.
19 pages, 19 sections. So you decide how you want to.
The charge
Issue
is one
deals
of
with
the
what
flashes.
section again?
That's 303. Now, you might want to group it under the removal clause.
When we're talking about.
Yeah, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to prepare a charter amendment to correct typographical and other errors in the charter relative to council votes by converting all fraction
Last of
numbers to
December.
whole numbers, including changing the numbers as follows. And this encompasses a whole bunch of different sections. You've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 1401A, 1402A. There's a whole area of that. You know, those two based on the list back when we did
Yes.
this thing.
But- oh, I have to hear your motion first, because these are fractional numbers listed in this list here. These are whole numbers.
I'm getting it.
Okay.
Relative to the whole numbers, that is regarding confirmation and removal for all directors, building commission, fire chief, police chief, the whole number shall be a majority. In other words, we don't need a number, it should be a majority. That's for confirmation and removal. Simple majority. That's the motion.
I'm confused, and I'm sorry. The numbers, the sections that you were referring to, those don't deal with confirmation.
Well,
removal.
yes.
All right.
There's 2 sections right up here.
Okay.
One has to do with the executive power, which is like a general statement.
Okay.
It's a general statement. And then the.
In
and
each
the one-
individual position, sorry.
And then under the building commissioner, where it changed in all the other removal clauses to a whole number, it remained fraction.
All right.
in that.
So the question is, we want to change those to a majority, which would be 3. We want to see 3. Do we all understand what we're talking about?
No, I don't, and I even, go ahead, could you guys just, if we do this, because I'm thinking, is this the legislation that you passed out?
That's not correct information.
No, okay, okay. But if we do all those sections, do they have to be individual on the, can we group them? We can't group them?
Um,
And how many are?
I think his language, just give me a minute, talk among.
Because my concern is if we add, I don't know how many we're talking about.
Right.
Boy, that's gonna really bulk up the
I-
ballot.
That's why I tried to make the statement correcting typographical and other errors in the charter relative to the council votes.
Do we though believe that they are typographical, but
I believe some are and some it's questionable.
I
But I
think
wasn't
it was-
around when it happened.
Well, I'm gonna go to the language.
What we have is what we have.
I believe it was typographical. I mean, I think it was an oversight. You can talk about something else.
Well, we're right at 8:25.
Okay.
Keep going.
How do we adjourn?
Whatever everybody wants.
I mean, this has been a good meeting.
Well, how many more do you think we have?
Well, it depends on how you want to read them.
well, you have 1, 2, 3.
Because this one's gonna require some work here.
So then if we adjourn, then we continue this conversation, discussion on May 13th. And
Right.
that is adequate time to get the legislation back from Joe Deemer and,
Well, I don't know if the 13th to the 21st will be enough, a week for him to turn it around for you all to see.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's keep going.
but then it would be enough time for council, because our
Yeah.
plan is for council to see all the proposed amendments on their first meeting in June.
That would be my suggestion as a past experience, even if council has a recess, you could have 3 staggered.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, because, yeah, that's a fifth.
Yeah.
Why don't we have a meeting on the 29th?
Oh.
We can resolve all of this, then it gives us enough time to get it all out, rather than going all the way.
Yeah.
Peggy, you good? Peggy's looking at her calendar.
Are we trying to get this on the November ballot this year?
Oh, yeah, it has to be filed by August.
Right.
That's the big issue. I have to advertise the ordinance that goes to council, then I have to advertise, put it in the newspaper, and the whole thing.
Or we can even do the 28th, it doesn't have to be on a Wednesday.
Can we do the 30th?
That's April, right?
No, yeah, April.
Can we do the 30th?
I can do the 30th too.
Yeah, I can do the 30th.
I'll be the king.
Because I could do the 30th, easy.
I'll be back.
30th is fine.
Don't worry.
You'll be feeling better. It'll be nice. Okay, is everybody happy with adjourning until April 30th? Do I have a, David, is April 30th good with you?
Good with me.
Yes, I
All
will
right.
be here on the
I
30th.
think we have a motion to adjourn tonight, and with the understanding that we will continue where we left off at a meeting on April 30th, at which point we're gonna go all night till we get it done.
6:30?
6:30.
I just wanted to say, the one charter amendment when it came down, and this is what I'm talking about, the generic language, when I do believe it was an honest oversight, is that shall the charter of the city of Macedonia, this is actual valid language, be amended so as to reduce the number of council members to 6, from 6 to 5, and eliminate the mayor's voting case ties and miscellaneous related sections pertaining thereto. So every time there was supposed to be that reduction, there was supposed to be subsequent results. And my feeling is that the section with the building commission felt it correct.
Some were missed. It's not
Yes,
some.
and that's what I believe was the honest.
I agree with you. That wasn't really, what I was trying to say is we can use generic language like that in a motion such that we do not have to line out and write a
Right,
six-foot.
and I will
long-
tell you, the Board of Election will never accept that.
Right.
They will never accept that.
All right, thanks, everybody.
And I don't think we want our voters to be looking at it that way. They'll look at it, they'll just
Thank you for
not
sending me
vote
all
on it.
those things I asked. They're over there.
Right, see, it's funny.